Hello everyone and welcome. In today's video I'm going to be talking about how I migrated my Windows VM with storage spaces over to Truenas. So in the last video you saw me migrate my whole server from Hyper-V to Proxmox, and in that video I didn't quite have enough time to finish the migration for storage spaces. So that's why I split it up into two parts, and in this video I'm going to be doing the second part, which is copying my data from storage spaces to a separate backup NAS and then moving it back into a ZFS volume created in Truenas. Because I'm going to be using the same hard drive as I am currently with storage spaces, I'll need to have somewhere else to store my data while I can reformat the hard drives with ZFS, and then I'll copy back the data. The first step is pretty simple. It's just creating the VM and going through the wizard in Proxmox. I have to assign the Truenas installer, of course, and then when I assign the RAM, I do have to give it quite a bit, and that is because ZFS really likes to have RAM. The recommendation that I heard is it's about 1 GB per terabyte of storage, so that's why I gave it 32 GB. I can always expand it because it is a virtual machine, so it's pretty easy. At this time I'm not going to be doing the PCI pass-through because I'm going to install Truenas first. The first little trouble I had was actually trying to disable the secure boot, because the Truenas is not assigned, and when you set it up as UEFI, as I really wanted to, secure boot is enabled by default. And it was a bit tricky to find the right hotkey to get into the BIOS of the VM, because apparently secure boot is not an option in the main overview. But once I figured it out, I was able to disable secure boot and go through the regular Truenas installer. It has to be mentioned that before I started this video, I did already prepare Plex. I did that in the last episode, where I disabled the automatic trash, and then I also made sure that my Plex media folder was backed up, and that includes also the folder that has all of the metadata. But now it's a simple matter of shutting down the VM and adding a PCI device. This is going to be doing the PCI pass-through, so I'll select the HBA. Then we can boot up the VM again and create our storage. So we'll go through the wizard and I will create a RAID C1. This will give me 1 drive of redundancy and 2 drives of capacity, because I have 3 drives. And we'll be leaving the rest of the wizard empty because I don't have any of that stuff. So it's pretty much what makes a RAID 5. After creating the storage pool, then I'll need to go and create the datasets. The datasets that I created here are temporary, because I did decide later to create the datasets in another way. I also found out that you can set up Active Directory in Truenas. However, I couldn't get it to work. It kept giving me an error that indicated a bad password, except my password was correct. So I ended up just creating a local user instead of using Active Directory to start out with. I can always set up Active Directory later and move over my shared folders to the new users. Now we'll go over to the server that's hosting my backup, and we'll have to create an rsync job to copy the data back to my main server. I would like to use a replication job, but actually I can't do that because it's not a one-to-one copy of the datasets that I want to use. When you do a replication job, you have to copy one dataset to one dataset, because it's not a file level copy, it's actually a block level copy. Whereas what I want to do with the migrating back, I want to have some specific folders that go in specific datasets, and I have one dataset in my backup that has multiple datasets worth of data. That's why I have to do an rsync job instead, because that's actually file level. I do have many terabytes of data, and while I let the first rsync job complete, I did go ahead and create the datasets in another way. I also created one of these datasets that have a dynamic feature. So when you create a dataset and then you create a share on top of it, you can select the preset that has private SMB share. And what that basically does is when each user connects to that SMB share, they get their own dataset with the username inside of the dataset. But it's transparent to the user. So for example, when the user opens up personal, all they see is their files. But in Truenas actually, they have personal and then your username and then the files. So when another user connects with SMB to the same share with the same exact path, they see their files. And this is very nice because you can just easily add users, and each user has their own private share. Of course, I could also assign multiple users to the same share separately from this share. but it's just nice to have. It's dynamically updated, so you don't have to do anything to add it. Now setting up Plex is actually pretty simple. I added both the media folder and the metadata folder to the same dataset in Truenas. And you just go to the apps tab and you install Plex. Then you can point both the configuration and the media path to the same dataset. And Plex is already made so that it will look inside a folder called library for the configuration. So it will like library, application support, Plex media server, I think. So that's why you can have them in the same dataset, because you can just create a folder next to the library folder with your media. And that's pretty much what I did. Now when you go into the Plex UI, you just have to sign in with your account and you're presented with all of your old libraries. So you go through each library and add an additional path with the new library folder, and you leave the original path in place. Now it will scan through all of the library and it should keep my metadata because I uploaded it to that same folder that Plex expects it to be. I will still have to do some of my settings again because I can't import the registry item from Windows. So that includes like my custom access URL, which is being proxied through HA proxy and having the SSL certificate applied at the proxy level. And doing it that way just makes it easier for me to maintain the certificates. So I don't have 1,000 different systems where I have to upload the certificate. I just have an HA proxy which handles everything. After a while, when all of the rsync jobs are complete, we can go ahead and disable them. Then we'll create some new dataset on the backup NAS, and then we can create some replication tasks on my main NAS. I'll create one replication task for Plex and my personal files, and then I'll create another replication task for my system backup. And that's because they go into two different storage pools on the backup server. Because the HDDs pool will be my personal and Plex, and the HDDs 2 will be my system backups, and of course it has the existing dump folder which I use for things that are not backed up. Well, it's only stored in the backup server. Before I'll be able to run these new replication tasks, of course I have to make room on my backup server because it's running pretty low on space. But once I've made some room, I'll be able to set these replication tasks up on a schedule, and basically when they start a new run, they'll create a ZFS snapshot and they will copy the snapshot over to the backup server. This means that it's only copying the data that changed and not any old data. This was actually a way simpler migration than I expected. Most of the time that I used was just waiting for the rsync tasks to copy over my data. Once all my data was copied over, it was pretty simple to set up the shares and set up the new backup jobs from the main server to the backup server. So now you know how I migrated my storage spaces to Truenas. If you enjoyed the video, you can also create some replication tasks for your like button, and then let me know in the comments how well it goes. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye for now.